And so I have some stuff from the press release here. So it was an oversubscribed round, primarily filled with Moneta Ventures, participation from GP, Protocol Ventures, Athlete Tech Group. For people that don't know, what does an oversubscribed round mean?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we initially set out to raise 1.5 million USD, and we ended up actually raising about 1.8 million USD, equates to about 2.3 million Canadian. And so an oversubscribed round is essentially whenever you set a goal, if you decide to raise more than that goal, based on the investor interest that you get, people that want to get in on the round, it's oversubscribed. Again, I think it's just lingo to say that like we're popular, but generally speaking, like this round, I don't think was easy for us. It was something that like by the end, I think we got a lot of great interest, which is why the round became oversubscribed. But like initially, I mean, we found it pretty difficult to raise around November, December when people were going for holidays. So it did take us about 3 months to get to a verbal commitment, and then obviously an additional month to go through all the legal process associated to the raise.
And so for an oversubscribed round, what's the consideration going into that? Like obviously like more money, great, but like that I'm assuming comes with more dilution, right? So like how do you weigh whether to exceed your funding goal or not?
It's the type of partners you bring on. So, Moneta came on, and candidly speaking, they led the majority of the round. So we honestly could have stopped right there, and we didn't have to take anyone else on. But we decided to bring some other people on, like, we brought on Derek Favors from the Utah Jazz, Thaddeus Young from the Chicago Bulls, Curtis Christopherson, who's the CEO of Innovative Fitness, GP Ventures, Protocol Ventures. We decided to bring some of these angels and smaller institutions on because we felt like they would open up a lot more sales channels. They really understood what we were building and could honestly give us a lot of great product feedback. They could also help on the hiring and talent side as well. So we just felt like they would be good strategic partners. That was kind of the biggest thing that I wanted to prioritize in this round is I wanted to make sure that we weren't bringing people on just because they had money. We were bringing them on because we felt like they could actually provide some strategic value to Trufan.
And so you said, I mean, I was actually my next question is how do you weigh between financial upside versus kind of connections and things like that? So you two questions in one with that answer, which is amazing. But you said it took three.
What I do.
So you said it took many months. It was a tough race, especially
Yeah.
up front.
Yeah.
Was it mainly just those first couple months? Was it just timing and people are going away for holidays? That's kind of what you said, or was there more factors that played into that?
Definitely more factors. I think it was two other factors other than timing and people going away for the holidays. Again, December is a really terrible period to start raising money. Is number one adjusting to COVID, right? Like raising in the pandemic is so different. Like with all of our previous raises, we actually met the managing partners at these VCs. We met the angels that we brought on in person. So it was kind of weird to be able to like just pitch virtually and you really get adjusted to that. And again, virtual pitches are tough as well because it's hard to keep people's interest for like a whole 30 minutes when you're pitching. But we tried to, mix it up a little bit. So that was number one. And then I think number two, just early on, our pitch deck or pitch, I don't think was, hitting the right angle. And what I mean by that is normally in a pitch, you want to really talk about not only what you've done well in the past, but where you're really going. And I think we needed a bit more time to have a bit more clarity of where we were going. Obviously, this is post player, so we obviously had a clear idea that we wanted to unify player and Trufan's products together. But what does that actually mean in the grand landscape of things? How does it actually affect the space of customer data or the space of even marketing broadly? That was stuff that took some time. It took a lot of calls. It took a lot of feedback that we got from people to really pinpoint what type of problem we were now going after.
With the pitch, how do you incorporate storytelling into that? Because obviously it's like this is the market size, this is what we think we can capture. Like, how do you storytell? Because I was listening to a bunch of interviews with Reid Hoffman and a couple other investors, and whenever they were talking about previous companies they invested in, it was never. I remember when Brian Chesky from Airbnb told me about the market size. It was like I remember when Brian Chesky told me the story in their pitch, and that's what really sticks with them, even like all these years later. So, how are you incorporating storytelling into your pitch?
I mean, yeah, the first 10 minutes is two things. It's not related to market size. It's not related to traction, revenue numbers. It's not related with what we want the money for. It's entirely related to two things. One is what is Onik and I story, so giving kind of our background, sharing it in a very honest way. And the second is giving a little bit of a background in terms of why is this solution important now? That was kind of the story arc that we built, along with discussing obviously that the current problem we're seeing is unprecedented. We're seeing an apocalypse when it comes to third-party data. Third-party data across Google Chrome, Firefox, Safari. You're seeing cookies go away by the end of 2022. You're seeing ad blockers continue to rise. You're seeing Apple IDFA being taken away with the next iOS update that comes out, which is about a $80 billion mobile ad tracking market gone overnight. And you're also seeing GDPR and CCPA, these two big privacy regulations, wreak havoc on Instagram and Facebook and what brands can do to advertise their products or their brand on those services. So I think we painted this picture of like the third party wasteland, if you will, and talked about why we believe first party data would be more important. That was the core theme of our pitch, is that third party deprecation is occurring. First party data will be more important. We are the best provider of first party data out there and will continue to be a great partner for many brands.
And on it, how long is a typical pitch? Like, what does that normally look like?
It's normally anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes. Again, like the first 10 minutes is really important because if I can convince someone of the problem and how big it is and why our solution matters, the other stuff we felt was pretty easy. Like our revenue numbers are solid. We've worked obviously not just with small businesses, but some of the biggest brands in the world. And a number of investors were very like happy to see the big logos that we had on our deck. As well, the product works, right? Like we could demo the product and show people, like, look, it actually works. It's not just a prototype. It's not just an idea that we're pitching here. We actually have been in market and have seen things and have iterated based on the feedback we've got.
And how do you kind of, especially in the first couple months when things are just going a little bit slower than you anticipate, how do you and Anik navigate that? Because from my understanding, it was a lot of long days, like back to back to back to back pitches. Like, how do you kind of, how do you navigate through that when you're not quite getting the results you want right away?
It's tough. I mean, so both Anik and I, like again, we had maybe what 3-4 pitches a day. We were at it for a solid 4 or 5 weeks. It really it was tough. Like there were points where I was nervous, I got anxious, I was doubting whether or not we were pitching the right way, whether or not this idea was even solid. Um, we went through 17 iterations of our deck. Right, like we kept changing our deck because we were like, maybe that word doesn't fit there. Maybe the slides need to be changed around. Maybe we got to add a new slide. Maybe the slide needs to be simpler. We were constantly asking for feedback from people who rejected us. We had about 41 rejections for this round in total, which I'm very proud of talking about because, again, I think those 41 rejections allowed us to get our first big yes with Mineta and then start to obviously go from there and start to get other people in. Because again, the feedback we got from those 41 partners that said no was so instrumental to us understanding, okay, cool, like, it's easy to take the easy route and say, oh, like they just didn't get it. But it's obviously harder and probably in your interest to say, what could I do better the next time to make sure they actually get it, to make sure they actually understand our idea, understand where we're going, understand why we're important. That was the key thing for us to realize. And that's why these deck iterations, the rejections we got are things that I'm very proud to talk about.
And with all the feedback you're getting, I mean, that's 41 rejections. That could be multiple people at different firms. So you're getting input and feedback from so many different people. And I
Yeah.
did a podcast with Mikhail Cho, who co-founded Unsplash. And he said one thing they dealt with, especially early on, was mentor whiplash, where you have two people who are like equal in stature, both telling you different things, and you don't know which feedback you're supposed to take in and implement. So how do you like, what processes do you have in place for in taking feedback and applying it to both your pitch and also the product?
Yeah, I mean, so two things. One is normally we didn't deal with too many multiple partner conversations. So we normally ask the partner that liked us first. Like, because normally what would happen, right, is you go from an associate, the associate likes you, they bring in one partner. And if the one partner likes you, then it goes to an investment committee where the one partner will basically back the idea, present it, and share it with the other partners. So I don't necessarily care that much to ask the people who rejected our idea why they rejected it, because that's feedback I can hear from the partner as well that presented it. Like what happened in the investment committee? Like why did our idea get shot down? That's stuff that can easily be relayed through that person. What I'm a little bit more interested in is what did that person see in our idea that made them want to proceed to the investment committee? Right? Like why did they like our idea up to a certain, that's what I really want to know so that I know what exactly to definitely avoid, or what things to think about in terms of feedback and how we can improve. But also, what are things that we should double down on that people like hearing about that we should definitely make sure we continue to put forward the next time?
And how are you tracking all of this? One, obviously, there's the feedback component you're tracking, but you're also tracking the relationships, who said what, who you need to follow up with. Like, how do you manage all of that?
Yes, I did not build a tracker, which was a huge mistake. And I'm actually helping a company out right now. It's more of a side project. I'm coming on as a founding partner for this company focused around student debt. And in the process of helping them raise their pre-seed round, I actually first told them before we go out and use this deck and raise any money, I want you to build a chart tracker, like a Google Doc spreadsheet. Here are all the people we talked to, their organization. Did we already get on a phone call with them? Were they interested? Yes or no? And then how much do they want to come in for and what valuation, and have all of that charted down. For me, what I did is I did two things. I had a Word document. In the Word document, I wrote down every single person I've talked to. And then literally, if they rejected me, I put them into a column that just said rejected and put down their feedback for why they rejected us. And then the ones that I thought were really close to closing, I like bolded them in red so that I would double down and really focus my time on continuing to email them and make sure that they got back to me. So that was number one. And then number two, Superhuman. I can't say enough about Superhuman and how helpful it was for being able to set follow ups that, like, I literally could just go Command H, remind me to get back to this email again on Friday, and it would pop up at the top of my inbox and I could immediately follow up. So Superhuman was just a fantastic tool when it came to like following up with people, making sure they got back to me, all through email and all through pretty much an automated manner.
That's awesome. And so when an investor does say yes, you get that the green light. What does that process look like then from them just saying that you get a verbal commitment, but then like is it just a bunch of legal stuff and that what happens after? Like what does that process look like from yes to actually getting the money?
Yeah, I mean, it was so cool because with Mineta, like we got on a Zoom call with them at like 9 p.m., 9:30 p.m. And obviously it was awesome because they had their managing partner as well as the partner that had worked on our deal in terms of pitching us to the investment committee. And they told us, yeah, we want to go forward. Here are kind of the high level terms. Some people agree to it on the call. Some people wait if they're trying to assess other offers. We really liked Mineta. Mineta was on the top of our list for who we wanted to get on because we really liked their backgrounds. They were all operators. They all ran enterprise SaaS companies before, and they were really humble and candid. Like Mineta was the first firm that told me what they were not only good at, but what they sucked at. So I love that. Like it was refreshing to hear a VC be like, "We're not a partner if you're looking for X, Y, Z," and just being very honest and candid with us. So we immediately said yes to them over the call because the terms were just great. We liked it on both sides, and we decided to move forward to paperwork on the term sheet. So past that, you need a term sheet signed. There was a bit of a back and forth in the term sheet over like provisions and specific items within it. But then past that, this round actually took a bit longer on the legal side. Normally, you wrap up kind of a week or two after you're done. You wrap up all the legal work. This was our first round where we were actually doing a priced round. So we weren't raising off a convertible note or a safe agreement. All those previous agreements, all the safe holders, all the convertible note holders were actually being converted in this round because it was a priced round. The valuation of the company had finally been set. So there was a lot more legal work associated to not only making sure Mineta's transaction went through, but all the previous safe holders were converting properly and everyone was looked out for. That was kind of the biggest reason why our legal took up about a month and a half, honestly.
And talking about the timing of the raise, how do you determine when to start your next round? Because I've heard in the past you say that early in previous rounds you've raised too early. So one, what does raising too early mean? And then how do you know when you should start your next round?
So I said raising too early in the sense of just overall in terms of the company's life cycle. I think it's always good to raise at the latest possible time. And I'll preface this with another point right after. But again, right, fundraising is all about you want to fundraise when you think you'll get good terms, right? Like if you're doing really badly, and you absolutely need to fundraise, then go for it. But just note that like the worse you're doing, the worse terms you're likely going to receive, right? You're not going to be giving up 10% of your company, you're going to be giving up 25, 30% of your company based on the traction, based on what you've done so far. So again, the reason why I suggest to early stage founders just raise at the last possible moment is because hopefully during that time you've gotten some level of a prototype out, even if it's like a non-functional wireframe on Envision that people can get feedback to. You've gotten customer feedback, customer testimonials, maybe even some pilots signed, and you have the early makings of a team that ideally could grow. If you have those three elements, you're far better to raise on favorable terms than if you just had an idea in a business plan and a deck and that's it. Right. So you see what I'm saying? Like, I feel like with Trufan, we raised a little bit too early because I feel like we could have waited a bit longer, got more people using the platform, even paying for the platform before we decided to fundraise. But then in terms again, right, like you want to wait till the last possible moment. But again, fundraising also does take time. across, talking to people, qualifying your offers, picking an offer, the legal work associated with post closing. It takes anywhere between kind of 2 to 3 to 4 months. So in a perfect world, if you were fundraising, I would probably fundraise about 5 to 6 months before you feel like things are going to get really drastic, like you're running out of money, and you're going to be in a tough situation.